Guster. Sorry, Guster, wrong name. Guster was standing on the word, pointing to the table of contents, or maps. Hi, everyone. I am using my iPad again to film because my phone, I don't understand why it feels that I have storage problems every now and then it kind of disappears and then it comes back. I don't know what's going on. Drives me crazy. I know I need to figure out this YouTube thing. I also need a microphone, which I did get a microphone, but for some reason it's not working. I don't know. Anyway, I like to keep things simple and sustainable, because I do this, post something every day, and I'm trying to just keep it simple, but it looks like I have some complications that are preventing that. Guster seems to be licking his collar. What's going on? Okay, well, let's jump into the Bible and we'll watch Guster clean himself. Okay, so we're on Leviticus chapter 6, starting at, I'm losing one. Oh no. I always hate when that happens. Don't go. Guster. Well, I guess we can focus on the word until we get, sorry, I'm going crazy with what to focus on. I'm very unfocused. Okay, let's go ahead and read Leviticus 6 to the end of Leviticus 6, starting at verse 24. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to Aaron and his sons, these are the regulations for the sin offering. The sin offering is to be slaughtered before the Lord in the place the burnt offering is slaughtered. It is most holy. The priest who offers it shall eat it. It is to be eaten in the sanctuary area in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches any of the flesh will become holy. And if any of the blood is spattered on a garment, you must wash it in the sanctuary area. The clay pot the meat is cooked in must be broken. But if it is cooked in a bronze pot, the pot is to be scoured and rinsed with water. Any male in a priest's family may eat it. It is most holy. But any sin offering whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place must not be eaten. It must be burned up. Okay, so that's the end of Leviticus chapter 6, and there are, a lot of regulations and rules for submitting these offerings for sin and making atonement and obtaining forgiveness of sins. But it's interesting, what was it that stood out? Oh, whatever touches any of the flesh will become holy. I think that's interesting because that does remind me of Jesus. It's like, I don't know, what comes to mind is the woman who touched the hem of his garment in order to be healed, and she was healed. But it's like when you touch the holy, then you become holy. So it's somehow still pointing to the ultimate offering of Jesus on the cross, and God providing really himself as the offering. And he is holy. And when we touch him and he touches us, we become holy. Not only that, when we ask him in, we have his spirit and we become the temple. And then the Holy of Holies resides within us, which is like mind-blowing, the whole thing. It's completely mind-blowing, Guster. Guster, show your pretty eyes. Okay, yeah, just kind of mind-blowing. It's hard to imagine. But like I said, as we get to the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, all these things will even become more clear. Let's go to John 11, chapter 11. John chapter 11, starting at verse 17. Here, you want to read that, Guster? You want to sniff it? That's where we're at in the Bible, okay? Okay. I'll move the Bible closer to him since he wants to look at it. Okay. Okay, Gussie, listen. Guster? Okay. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, sorry, hold on, that's me, not the Bible. I just have to get situated here. Okay, so Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. Uh-oh. That's me, not the Bible. We just lost a kid. Well, let's focus on the Bible. Where are we? Okay. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb, it was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary had seen what Jesus did, believed in him, but some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. "What are we accomplishing?" they asked. "Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation." Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." He did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for that nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life. Therefore, Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the people of Judea. Instead, he withdrew to a region near the wilderness, to a village called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country to Jerusalem for their ceremonial cleansing before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and as they stood in the temple courts, they asked one another, "What do you think? Isn't he coming to the festival at all?" But the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that anyone who found out where Jesus was should report it, so they might arrest him. Okay, that's the end. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, Jesus rose, he raised someone from the dead. There's so much in this passage. You know what really immediately stands out is, I hope you're not getting vertigo from my camera. What really stands out to me is, Martha, she's like, and Mary, and they're like, "Yeah, we know you could have prevented this. Why, they were upset that he had delayed. But they were like, "Yeah, we know he, in the last day, he'll rise again at the resurrection, in the resurrection at the last day." And then Jesus answers, "I am the resurrection." Isn't that amazing? Never ceases to amaze me when he says, "I am the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life." He says all these major things. I am the resurrection. I mean, you can't say he wasn't saying that he was the Messiah, because he's saying it all the time. I mean, he's like, imagine meeting someone and, you're like, "Hi, I'm Sarah, what's your name?" And they're like, I am the resurrection. I'm the life. I'm life. You might think they're like crazy, unless it's true. And in the case of Jesus, it is true. But yeah, it's just interesting. Because often, in theology, you kind of think of concepts like, or the theology of the resurrection, or, you know, um, you know, a certain systematic theology, like what's the doctrine of the resurrection and blah 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 blah. When it's like the resurrection has a name, and it's Yeshua, it's Jesus, a person, God. But I don't know how much more clear you could get than that. He says, I am the resurrection, and he says, and the life. I am life. It's like life has a name, and it's Yeshua. It's Jesus. Yeshua is the Hebrew name for Jesus. But yeah, isn't that's wild for me to think about, especially as I shared in my I think my last video, where I'm just kind of focused on death all the time. Focused on, because I've been through something really cataclysmic 23 years ago, and it kind of just scarred me emotionally. So I always think I'm going to go through, I basically was dying. I was dying 23 years ago, between life and death. And I'll share more, like I said, when we get to the book of Ezekiel. But yeah, so I was always on the verge of death, like every single day for like 5 months in the hospital. And it was traumatic. In short, I had a miraculous turnaround, which I will share in detail. But I walked out of that experience with a trauma and with a miracle, and holding both in tension. And it's kind of like when Jacob wrestled with the angel, or wrestled with God. He walked away from that blessed, but also with a limp. And I kind of feel like I have this emotional limp, and maybe a little bit of a physical, like, I came out of it miraculously. Okay. But, there are still a few little things that aren't perfect, health-wise. But, yeah, anyway, what is my point? Oh, my preoccupation with, like, things going south and going, spiraling down the drain, basically. And death and illness, all of that trauma-related stuff. It's kind of like if the Israelites, that when God parted the Red Sea, and they passed through on dry land, if they had just kept fixating on not the miracle of that, but on, like, oh my gosh, it was so scary walking between the walls of water. I thought the water was going to fall in on us, and those chariots were behind us, and I was scared. And, it's like if they focused on all of that as opposed to the actual miracle of God parting the Red Sea for them. I'm kind of like that. Like, instead of focusing on the miracle and the life and Jesus as life, I kind of focus on, oh my gosh, I can't believe I went through that 23 years ago, and is it going to happen again? Am I going to circle the drain all over again? Well, of course I will circle the drain, as they say, proverbially. What? I can't talk. Because I will die unless Jesus returns. But anyway, all that to point out here, let's focus on the Bible again. So that he says, I am the resurrection and the life. So, yeah, I think journeying through the Bible, it's helping me because it's like the truth. It's like, okay, don't focus on death, focus on Jesus, Yeshua, the life. He's the resurrection. And he says here, even if, where was it? Let's read it again. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? And so that's really wonderful because it's like, whether we live or die here, we live because he is the resurrection and the life. So, yeah, so that's my task, to focus on living and life and really relationship with Jesus, who is life itself. Because he's the antidote to death. He's the cure. He's the cure for he's the cure for death. He's the cure for all of it. And I know that intellectually, so I'm trying to know that deep, deep, deep down in my heart. Anyway, let's end with a prayer. Sorry there aren't any kitties here. Okay, let's pray. Lord, help me to live. Help me to know you as life personified. You are what holds everything together in the world. You're holding it all together because you are life. Help me with my fears and all of that. I pray for everyone who's listening, Lord, that you help them with their fears and help them with their pains, physical, emotional, spiritual, that you would bring comfort and healing to them, just as I pray that for myself. Thank you for being patient and loving and for being life. How wonderful it is. And it's like that, saying l'chaim, to life, which is really to you. So we thank you for life. And I pray that you bring life to the people who listen. Pray these things in Yeshua's name, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everybody. Take care.